The latest crop progress report from USDA shows just under 10% of soybeans are planted across the state. Badger crop doc Damon Smith is hoping to plant soybeans this week at the Arlington Agricultural Research Station. While it is early in the season, Damon says there's a particular disease growers should already be getting ready to monitor. White mold is problematic in Wisconsin.
It's sort of hard to think about white mold management already in the season, right? Because we see it show up kind of mid-season to late season. But really, there's a lot of really important decisions that need to be made now. Of course, variety choice has already been made, so that is one thing. But tillage and then planting populations are still something that we can focus on in terms of white mold management before we move into that kind of mid-season. So if you struggle with white mold, maybe no tilling and then dropping those planting populations down closer to 100,000 seeds per acre, that can certainly help and get you ahead of white mold.
The disease cycle, these spores are already in the soil, so they've overwintered here.
Yeah, so they make a hardened, what we call a hardened survival structure. It looks like a rat turd, very hard. And that fungus, it has an advantage in that it can survive in the soil up to 10 years once those are there. So every time we have a crop, we have some white mold, those hardened structures form, we harvest and they fall back to the soil. And that really is the seed, so to speak, for the next round of white mold, right? So if you have a history in a particular field, those structures are there. The crop has to grow and then close the canopy mid-season. And then when bloom starts, that little seed, so to speak, makes a mushroom-like structure, which gives rise to the spores that actually infect the plant. And so what we're trying to do with some of our planting population work early in the season is we're actually trying to delay that canopy closure a bit, but we're trying to balance that with yield potential, right? So that's where that 100,000 seeds per acre comes in. That's kind of the sweet spot that Sean and I have been working on. Once you kind of impact that formation of that mushroom, that can buy you some time into that bloom period to delay that spore flight, so to speak. And then once you get into that bloom time, that's really the time where we want to make that fungicide decision. And so then there's some things that have to be considered during that time to decide whether you're going to pull the trigger or not.
Yes, it's become an annual issue in Wisconsin, but the damage it can do, it can be pretty detrimental. Give us an idea. Maybe it's a dollar sign.
Yeah, it's we're actually working on a new analysis right now, looking at some the last 5 years or so of fungicide trials all across the Midwest, and we can see some pretty substantial yield losses. In some cases, once we get up to some of those really damaging levels, 50% or more of those plants actually being infected, we can see 15, 20, 25 bushel losses on a per acre basis. So that's pretty substantial. Depending on, that's variety dependent and stuff too. But the impacts are great, right? And so being able to get on this and manage it is really important. It is behind soybean cyst nematode. It is the second most important disease in the Midwest. And that is because we sit in an environment which is just really favorable. So our moist conditions, our humid conditions being, with a river on the west side of the state and the lake on the east side, we just sit sort of in the perfect environment, and that's really what drives the disease.
So what's our window, I guess, at this point in the season? How often should we be using maybe some of the online tools that Extension offers?
Unfortunately, this is a disease that once you see the damage on the plant, it's really too late to make a decision. So that's really why we talk about needing a crystal ball to kind of look ahead in the future. This is sort of the classic example of disease forecasting. And as you know, we've been working on forecasting in the white mold space for almost a decade at this point, developing a series of models and things. And then we've automated those models and different tools to try to help make that decision, that fungicide application decision. A lot of that is very much weather-based, but there is some soybean phenology that we built into that, canopy closure work. When is the crop actually blooming? Because the window for the infections are actually happening at that bloom time. So when you see those first flowers to where you see the first pod onset, those are the bookends of that window. And so your fungicide applications really have to be timed within that window. And what we want to do with our tools is try to determine, all right, if we are in that susceptible window, do we really have the environment that led up to that time and then during that time to actually be favorable for these spore flights and subsequent infections? And so the tools we've developed, Sporecaster, which most are probably familiar with, that helped make that decision on whether we would need to spray or not.
And we're moving away from Sporecaster. There's a new but more well-rounded tool now for growers to use, no matter what phone you have, no matter if you want to use a desktop or a smartphone. It's called Ag Forecasting for short.
Yep, Ag Forecasting for short. It's a mouthful. Its full name is Agricultural Forecasting Advisory System. Nobody wants to say that. We've shortened it to Ag Forecasting. Yes, the standalone app is going to be phased out. So if you have Sporecaster on your phone right now, it will still run, but it will be phasing out through the season. So I would encourage folks to kind of move towards this. We call it an online dynamic app. Essentially, it's a tool that runs in the cloud. You can access it with any browser. So you can run an Android, you can run Apple, you can even do it on your desktop, anywhere you can access the internet and run any of the corn or soybean tools that we have. And what's nice about the soybean side is, in addition to having the white mold model, we also have a new frog eye leaf spot model, which runs in there as well. So folks can get multiple models sort of in one place. The other nice thing about our newer tool is that we are also now plugged into the WiscoNet. So our hardwired weather station network around the state. Been a lot of work and investment in the state for that WiscoNet, and so now we have that data layer which can feed into those models. So if you're a farmer near one of those WiscoNet stations, you want to see what the actual measured weather looks like and impacts that model, you can actually run a forecast for that particular WiscoNet. Or you can do it the old way, like you used to do in Sporecaster, where we can actually drop a pin and actually get that site-specific weather forecast, which that weather data comes down from the cloud on a 2.5 kilometer grid. So you still have a lot of the things you were probably familiar with Sporecaster, but we have added newer models. You can sort of get a one-stop shop and then access the WiscoNet stations.
To bookmark the Ag Forecasting tab on your browser, visit badgercropdoc.com. In the coming weeks, you'll be hearing more about it from Damon and the rest of the Extension Crop team. Damon Smith is a professor and extension specialist in the Department of Plant Pathology at UW-Madison. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Stephanie Hoff.